Hi, just a few words about our homework assignment for week one. There are a number of components that I'd like to go over. The first one is a writing assignment. And in the writing assignment, I think it should be fairly simple, but also something you may have to think about a little bit. First off, I want you to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about who you are, which diocese you come from, and maybe a few words about why you're taking this course, whether it's for a requirement or a personal interest. Just letting us know why you're here, and that's probably very helpful. The second part of the question is a little more difficult, and I'll try to explain as best I can what I'm looking for here. I am asking you in the second part to describe your relationship with the Old Testament. And I've done this exercise in a number of classes, and I think once people get the gist of what it is that I'm looking for, they find the process to be fairly enlightening. So, what I mean by this is people come to me with a variety of experiences with the Old Testament. Sometimes people have only experienced the Old Testament as the first reading in church, and oftentimes they have no idea what it's about and don't know why it's there, but it's just reading from the Bible. That may be your experience, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes people have a very long history in Sunday school relating to the Old Testament, so that's sort of one specific experience of the Old Testament. Now we're coming and reviewing the work of the Bible as adults, so it's a little bit different. But tell us about that. Another thing people often say to me is that they don't like the God of the Old Testament, but they do like the God of the New Testament, which is an interesting observation. Sometimes I think personally that they perhaps have not read the Old Testament very thoroughly. But on the other hand, there are plenty of things to object to in the Old Testament. It's not a pretty text all the time. So if that's your experience, you can tell us about that. Sometimes it's helpful for people to come up with a specific adjective like fascinating or complicated or fun or imaginative or repulsive or whatever you may think about the Old Testament. Think about that adjective and then write a little bit about it. And also, if your relationship, what we're calling your relationship with the Old Testament, has changed over the years, you could talk about that as well. Perhaps when you were growing up, you found the stories exciting, and as an adult, you found them to be less interesting, or maybe the other way around, that you really didn't understand it as a child, but now you have maybe a better appreciation. Whatever your experience of the Old Testament is, I would like for you to think about that and write about that. So please do that for the coming week. Usually, your writing assignments will have, for lack of any better measurement of what I'm looking for, a minimum number of words, just to give you a sense of how long of a passage I'm expecting you to write. Microsoft Word, for example, has a word count tool, so if you're unsure about how many words you're writing, you don't have to actually sit there and count them out. Your computer should have a way of doing that for you, so please use that. Also, if English is not your first language, please do not feel overly self-conscious about your use of English. If you can explain what it is that you're feeling, and you use very short sentences or a limited vocabulary, that's perfectly fine. So please don't let that be a barrier to you expressing yourself in this course at any time. So that's one aspect of your homework assignment for the coming week. So tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us why you're here, and tell us about your relationship with the Old Testament. There's also a reading assignment, and the reading I've assigned is from this book called Rediscovering Eve, and the subtitle is Ancient Israelite Women in Context. This is an excellent book, probably one of the best books out there talking about the social background of the Israelites and understanding who the Israelites were and how the average Israelite lived. And even though it sounds like the book is all about women, if you learn about the women in the household, you automatically have to learn about the men and the children and the role of boys and the role of girls, sons and daughters. So it's not solely focused on women. I've copied and posted PDFs of the excerpts from this book that I'd like for you to read. If you feel very motivated and would like to read the rest of the book, it's an excellent read. I have used this in many seminary courses. It's, I would say, a little bit high-level reading, but not certainly not incomprehensible, and not the most complicated thing that I assign in seminary. So I recommend this book. It's also fairly inexpensive, especially if you get the electronic version. Also, I wanted to let you know that all of the readings for this course, except for one excerpt, will be posted online. In other words, there's only one book that you need to buy. And that book is called get it on the screen here, The Prophetic Imagination by Walter Brueggemann. And as you can see, it's fairly thin. It should be fairly inexpensive. And information about the book is located on the website. I think there's a couple of different editions of this book out there. It doesn't really matter if you have a new edition or an old one. This one is fairly old, I think. If we had more time, I would assign a similar book by Walter Brueggemann called, get it on the screen here too, Theology of the Old Testament. But this one is a little thicker, so we're not going to read this book for this course, but it's also an excellent overview of the Old Testament. So if you like this one, you'll love the thicker one, if you are very ambitious. So I wanted to give you a heads up that we will be reading from this book. So I think that happens on week 4, so you have some time to acquire it. I think there might even be PDFs online. I know there are versions in Spanish, if Spanish is your first language and you're more comfortable reading in Spanish. There are those copies available as well. Just to tell you a little bit about Myers, who wrote this book. Carol Myers is primarily an archaeologist and writes a number of books in the field of archaeology. She teaches at Duke University. Her husband also teaches there, and they do archaeology together, interestingly enough. And Carol is also a feminist scholar, and I would say has some very interesting and nuanced takes on feminism that we'll be talking about as we go through the course. But just her view of the Israelite family, I think, from my standpoint, is right on and fits best with the description in the text of the Bible. So that's why I'm having you read this course. So do the writing assignment, do the reading from Rediscovering Eve, and start to acquire this book by Brueggemann. One other little tidbit that I'm having you do for this week, there is a video called The Imperial History of the Middle East, which sounds like it's going to be 8 hours long, but it's actually only a few minutes long. And it just shows the sweep of history over the land of Israel spanning the centuries. And the main thing that this video shows you is how many empires have conquered this particular part of the world. And it gives you a sense that the Israelites were almost throughout their entire history an embattled people, a small minority that was under threat by invasion constantly. And I think this very short video really drives that point home. So I'd like for you to watch that as well. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to email me or text me. And good luck with the homework. Hope you have a good week. Thanks. Bye.